Hook it up. I want it gone before he brings more of them here.
Ma'am, the vehicle is parked in a private driveway.
I am the HOA president. I authorized the tow. This is a violation of community bylaws regarding
Vagrancy and unauthorized vehicle. Lady, it's a $100,000 Mercedes. It doesn't look unauthorized.
It's stolen or drug money. Look at him. Does he look like he belongs in a neighborhood like this?
This woman is currently trespassing.
Don't you dare speak to me, officer!
This 911 call was made on a sweltering Saturday afternoon in the gated community of Sovereign Hills, Virginia. It begins with a parking dispute. It ends with an international diplomatic incident, a woman in handcuffs, and a courtroom judgment that would shatter records. Patricia "Patty" Vance was not just a neighbor, she was the self-appointed gatekeeper of Sovereign Hills. At 58 years old, she had held the position of Homeowners Association president for 12 consecutive years. In those 12 years, the local police precinct had received 42 non-emergency calls from her number. The statistics painted a picture that supervisors had conveniently ignored for over a decade. 42 calls, 38 of them involved suspicious persons, and every single one of those 38 suspicious persons was Black or Hispanic. Her complaints followed a meticulous, suffocating pattern. In 2018, she called the police on a Black landscape architect measuring a client's yard, claiming he was casing the property for a burglary. In 2020, she reported a Hispanic delivery driver for loitering because he spent 5 minutes organizing packages in his truck. In 2022, she attempted to fine a Black teenage girl for running a lemonade stand without a permit, calling the police when the girl's father refused to close it down. Each time, the officers arrived, de-escalated the situation, and left. Patricia Vance was viewed as a nuisance, a concerned citizen with too much time on her hands. No one connected the dots. No one saw the weaponized bias hiding behind the bylaws. Until she targeted the wrong man. Dr. Adebayo Okafor was not a squatter. He was not a drug dealer. He was a senior career diplomat, a ranking envoy to the United Nations, and a man who had spent the last 20 years navigating the most delicate geopolitical conflicts on the planet. He held a PhD in international relations from Oxford. He had negotiated ceasefires in conflict zones where gunfire was the background noise to breakfast. Colleagues described him as a man of unshakable composure. He had moved into the Sovereign Hills estate 3 days prior, seeking a quiet retreat for his family near the DC Embassy Row. He drove a vehicle with specialized diplomatic plates that grant specific legal immunities under the Vienna Convention. But on this Saturday, to Patricia Vance, those credentials meant nothing. She didn't see a diplomat. She saw a Black man in a white neighborhood, and her cognitive bias filled in the rest of the story. Before we dive into the footage that cost this HOA president everything, ask yourself this. Should HOA boards have the legal power to tow vehicles from private property without police verification? Let me know your stance in the comments. The incident occurred at 2:15 p.m. on a humid July afternoon. The air was thick, smelling of melting asphalt and freshly cut grass. The cicadas were buzzing loudly, a drone that added to the tension on Willow Creek Drive. Dr. Okafor had just returned from the grocery store. He was parked in his own driveway, the trunk of his charcoal gray Mercedes S-Class open. He was removing bags of produce when a golf cart screeched to a halt behind him, effectively blocking him in. Patricia Vance stepped out. She wasn't wearing a uniform, but her posture screamed authority. She held a clipboard like a weapon. "Excuse me. You, step away from the car." Dr. Okafor paused, a bag of oranges in his hand. He turned slowly. "Can I help you, madam? Don't play dumb with me. I've been watching this house. The owners are on vacation in Europe. You have 5 minutes to get this. This vehicle off the property before I have it impounded. I believe you are mistaken. I am the new tenant. The lease began on the 1st of the month. Liar. I approve all leases. I never saw an application for an Adebayo Okafor, or anyone who looks like you. My application was processed through the State Department's housing liaison. It bypasses the standard board review for security reasons. State Department? You expect me to believe you work for the government? With those tattoos? Dr. Okafor glanced at his arm. A small, traditional tribal mark on his forearm, a symbol of his heritage. Madam, please move your cart. I have frozen goods melting. I'm not moving anything. I'm calling the police. And I'm calling the tow truck. You're trespassing. The tow truck arrived first. The driver, a man named Mike, looked confused. The Mercedes was clearly parked on private property. "Ma'am, I can't tow a car from a driveway unless the owner requests it," Mike said, leaning out of his window. "I am the president of the HOA. I represent the owner. Tow it." "Sir," Mike looked at Dr. Okafor, "is this your car?" "It is, and if you touch it, you will be liable for theft." Patricia screamed, her voice cracking. "He's threatening us. He's aggressive. Just do your job." That was when Officer Greg Miller pulled up. Officer Miller had been on the force for 3 years. He was young, impressionable, and eager to please the respectable residents of Sovereign Hills. He saw Patricia Vance, an older white woman in distress, and Dr. Okafor, a tall, broad-shouldered black man, standing over her. In his mind, the puzzle assembled instantly and incorrectly. He saw what his biases trained him to see, not a homeowner, but a threat. "Okay, break it up," Miller said, hand resting near his holster. "Ma'am, stand back. You step away from the vehicle." "Officer, thank God," Patricia pointed a shaking finger. "He's refusing to leave. He claims he lives here. He's trying to steal this car. Sir, turn around. Hands on your head." Dr. Okafor didn't move. His voice was calm, almost dangerously quiet. "Officer, I am a diplomat. I have identification in my pocket. I reside at this address." I said, "Hands on your head. I'm not going to ask you again." "You are making a mistake. Under Article 29 of the Vienna Convention, my person is inviolable. You cannot detain me." "I don't care about your convention. I care about trespassing. Turn around now." Officer Miller closed the distance. He reached for Dr. Okafor's arm. Dr. Okafor didn't resist physically, but he didn't comply. He stood like a statue. "I am reaching for my identification, slowly." "Don't you reach for anything." Miller drew his taser. The red dot danced on Dr. Okafor's chest. "He's got a gun," Patricia shrieked, lying effortlessly. "I saw a gun in the trunk." The tension on the driveway snapped. Neighbors were now watching from their windows. Cell phones were recording. Dr. Okafor looked directly at the body cam. "My name is Dr. Adebayo Okafor. I am the Deputy Chief of Mission. If you deploy that weapon, officer, you will end your career today." "Get on the ground, last warning," Miller shouted, adrenaline drowning out reason. This is the moment where training fails and bias takes the wheel. Do you think officers receive enough training on diplomatic immunity and de-escalation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The reveal came not from Officer Miller, but from his radio. He had called in the license plate number moments before stepping out of the car. The dispatcher's voice crackled through the speaker on his shoulder, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Unit 4 Alpha. Be advised on that tag, heavily restricted. That returns to a diplomatic vehicle registered to the Nigerian mission. Status is red-level immunity. Do not detain. Repeat, do not detain. Notify State Department immediately." Officer Miller froze. The taser was still raised. Patricia Vance blinked, confused. What? That's a fake. He hacked the system. Unit 4 Alpha, copy? The dispatcher asked, urgency in her voice. Miller lowered the taser slowly. His face went pale. The realization that his career had just hit a brick wall washed over him. Copy, Miller whispered. He looked at Dr. Okafor. The black man he was about to tase was not a burglar. He was a man whose arrest would trigger an international crisis. Officer, Dr. Okafor said, brushing dust off his shirt. You have threatened a protected diplomat with a deadly weapon based on the word of a woman who is currently blocking my driveway. Would you like to see my credentials now? Miller holstered his taser. His hands were shaking. Sir, I need to see ID. Dr. Okafor slowly produced a heavy, leather-bound credential case. He flipped it open. The badge inside wasn't a standard ID, it was the red and blue crest of the Department of State, identifying him as a diplomatic agent with full criminal and civil immunity. I didn't know, Miller stammered. You didn't ask, Okafor replied. You listened to her. He pointed at Patricia Vance. Patricia's face had turned a mottled shade of red. She wasn't apologizing. She was doubling down. It's a fake. I want him arrested. He forged it. Ma'am, shut up, Miller snapped, the fear for his own job finally overriding his deference to her. Step away from the cart. Within 10 minutes, the driveway was swarming. A watch commander arrived. 2 State Department security agents in dark suits pulled up in a black SUV. The power dynamic shifted violently. The watch commander, Lieutenant Griggs, walked straight to Dr. Okafor. Dr. Okafor, on behalf of the department, I apologize. This should never have happened. Apologies are noted, Lieutenant, but this woman, he gestured to Patricia, has attempted to tow my vehicle, filed a false police report claiming I had a gun, and harassed me on my property. I want to press charges. You can't press charges against me, Patricia yelled. I'm the HOA president. I have immunity. You have bylaws, Mrs. Vance, Dr. Okafor said coldly. I have immunity. There is a significant difference. The State Department agent stepped forward. Lieutenant, we are logging this as an incident of harassment against a protected foreign dignitary. We expect an arrest. Lieutenant Griggs turned to Patricia Vance. Patricia Vance, place your hands behind your back. What? You're arresting me. You filed a false report claiming he had a gun. That's a felony. You're also being charged with disorderly conduct and harassment. But he's black. He doesn't belong here. The silence that followed that scream was deafening. The body cam captured it perfectly. The raw, unfiltered racism that had been driving her actions for 12 years was finally laid bare for the record. And there's the hate crime enhancement, the State Department agent noted dryly. Cuff her, Griggs ordered. As Patricia Vance was led away, screaming about property values and bylaws, Officer Miller stood by his cruiser, head in his hands. Lieutenant Griggs approached him. Badge and gun, Miller, in the trunk. Administrative leave pending investigation. Liu, I was just responding to the call. You almost tased a diplomat because a Karen told you he looked suspicious. Badge, gun, now. By 8 p.m. that evening, the body cam footage had been leaked. It exploded across the internet. 200,000 views in the first hour. 3 million by the next morning. The hashtag #ChaDiplomatWhileBlack trended globally. The Nigerian embassy issued a formal letter of protest to the U.S. State Department. The Sovereign Hills HOA board held an emergency meeting at midnight. By 1 a.m., Patricia Vance had been removed as president. But the damage was far from over. The legal fallout was catastrophic. Dr. Okafor didn't just want an apology. He wanted to dismantle the system that empowered people like Patricia Vance. He hired a high-profile civil rights firm. The lawsuit named Patricia Vance personally, the Sovereign Hills HOA, and the police department. The claims were devastating. Defamation and malicious prosecution. For the false gun report. Civil rights violations under 42 U.S. Code, Section 1983. Violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. The lawsuit sought $10 million in damages. The HOA's insurance policy tried to deny coverage, claiming Patricia's actions were intentional criminal acts, which left Patricia personally liable. During the deposition, the 42 previous calls Patricia had made came back to haunt her. Dr. Okafor's lawyer played the tapes one by one. Mrs. Vance, in 2018, you called the police on a black man walking a dog. You said he looked like a thug. That man was a neurosurgeon living 3 streets over. Did you know that? I was protecting the neighborhood. Protecting it from what? Dark skin? I have a right to be safe. And Dr. Okafor had a right to park in his own driveway without a gun being pointed at his chest. The judgment came 11 months later. The jury didn't deliberate long. They were disgusted. The verdict, Patricia Vance was found liable for $5.5 million in punitive and compensatory damages. The police department settled separately for $2.5 million and agreed to mandatory bias training regarding diplomatic credentials. The HOA was fined $500,000 for negligence in supervision. Patricia Vance's life collapsed. She had to sell her home in Sovereign Hills, the very home she claimed to be protecting, to pay a fraction of the judgment. She filed for bankruptcy, but punitive damages for intentional malice are often not dischargeable. Her retirement savings were wiped out. She also faced criminal charges. She pleaded guilty to filing a false police report and hate crime harassment. She was sentenced to 18 months in state prison. The queen of the HOA was now an inmate. Officer Miller was fired. His name was added to the National Decertification Index, effectively preventing him from ever working in law enforcement again. The State Department made it clear that employing officers who cannot distinguish between a diplomat and a criminal is a national security risk. This story ends with a victory, but it raises a terrifying question. If Dr. Okafor had been a regular citizen, a teacher, an engineer, a father without a diplomatic badge, what would have happened? He likely would have been tased, arrested, charged with resisting arrest, his life ruined because a woman decided he didn't belong. The badge saved him, but it shouldn't have been necessary. Dr. Okafor released a brief statement after the trial. He stood on the steps of the courthouse, the same composure on his face that he held in the driveway. I am a diplomat with 20 years of service. I had immunity. I had identification. And I was almost killed because of the color of my skin in my own driveway. Justice was served today, but true justice is not a $5 million check. True justice is a world where I do not need a diplomatic badge to be treated like a human being. This wasn't just about one racist neighbor. It was about the system that listened to her for 12 years without question. It's about the culture that taught Officer Miller to see a threat before he saw a person. If you believe that filing a racially motivated false police report should carry a mandatory minimum prison sentence, hit that like button. If you want to see more stories where the system actually works, subscribe to the channel. I'm the Justice Chronicler. Stay safe, know your rights, and always keep the camera rolling.